me, Louie T. Welcome to the 2018 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names in the 2018 NFL Draft. We're making a nice sharp turn to talk about the safety position, and I've got to say, my oh my, how the safety position has changed and evolved over the years. And I know this isn't happened overnight. This isn't something that just happened yesterday. We've seen this gradually happen over the years, that the safety position has become more of a slot position, more of a blurring of the lines, so to speak, between safety and corner. There's no clear delineation between strong and free anymore. Every now and again, you'll get a pure strong safety like a Cam Chancellor, or you'll get a pure free safety like a Earl Thomas. But even Earl can do some of the strong safety things too. He can still come up and hit you in the mouth. He can come up and be a enforcer in the box, so to speak. But it's rare nowadays to get a guy that is actually a safety. I mean, the guy that's gonna hit you, the guy that can still play 30, 40 yards away from the line of scrimmage, a guy that can do some of everything but actually look like a safety. A lot of these safeties look like corners these days, and that's what I ran into watching the tape. It's hard to find a guy that can do everything. Everyone's got a specialized job. And it's funny because the versatility that we speak of, that we talk about so often with these safeties, it makes them less of a safety, more of a linebacker, more of a corner, and less of a safety. But in any event, I'm not here to rant about the safety position and the erosion of the safety position, or I shouldn't say erosion because maybe that's not the right term, but the evolution of the safety position. But to me, this next player that I'm going to break down is, to me, the epitome of what today's NFL safety looks like and what his job responsibility entails. A guy that pretty much does everything, can blitz, can line up as a nickel linebacker, but his specialty is lining up over the slot. And so we're going to talk about Alabama safety Minkah Fitzpatrick and what he brings to the table and why he's looked at and viewed upon by many in this draft as the best safety in the 2018 NFL draft class. Let's talk about his pros and what makes him a standout in this class, and why this guy's going to come off the board probably in the first 10 picks of the 2018 NFL draft. So you start with Minkah Fitzpatrick and his pros. You're talking about a guy that's 6 feet, 6'1", right around 200 pounds. That's great size for an NFL safety. Yeah, would you like your safety to be 215? Sure. I mean, that's probably more ideal, but for what we're asking these safeties to do these days, how realistic is that? Is it to ask a guy to be north of 6 feet, to be 215 and still run a sub 4.5? I mean, it's almost not fair. We ask receivers to do it all the time, right? But you're asking these guys to be physical enough to go up and challenge tight ends and running backs, take on offensive linemen, but still be able to run with receivers and some of the faster tight ends in this league. It's not fair to ask these guys to be 220, 225 pounds. So look, anything north of 200 pounds, fine by me. Minkah Fitzpatrick fits into that mold, so his measurables just fine by me. Speed is something that he brings to the table. That's the next pro. 4.4, 640 is what he ran at the combine. And that's what you pretty much see on tape. What you see is what you get with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think that's why so many people are excited about this guy, because what you see is what you get. And as we talk about these safeties and as you see me break these different guys down, what you'll realize is that he's probably the most complete of the safeties. You get more in what you get out of Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I think that's the most comforting thing. If you're talking about from a comfort level, if you're talking about from a standpoint of, do I know what I'm getting, the safest pick at the safety position, I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is that, because of that speed I just talked about, because of the next few pros that we're going to talk about: athleticism, acceleration, agility, and change of direction. All of these things are things that he does extremely well. Let's talk about athleticism. This is a guy that can run, that can jump, that can do all the things you like. The agility and change of direction, I think, is what kind of separates him from some of the other safeties in this particular draft, because this is a guy that I look at him, and I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. I look at Minkah Fitzpatrick as a bona fide slot corner. I mean, how often was it that you got to see this guy line up at free safety at 30 yards away from the line of scrimmage and just play center field? How often? If ever. I don't recall seeing him do that on tape at all. They rock and rolled their safeties, but he generally wasn't a safety on the field. They didn't look at him as a safety on the field at Alabama. I don't even know how you put him in a box and say that he is a safety. I look at him as a corner. I really look at this guy as a corner with linebacker, nickel linebacker capabilities. 90% of his snaps were spent over the slot. I mean, how can you even classify this guy as a safety? I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm just going by what everybody else is saying. But I'm telling you, this guy's a bona fide slot corner with nickel linebacker and dime linebacker capabilities. That's essentially what he is. But in any event, he runs like a corner. He covers like a corner. He was a corner in 2016 for all intents and purposes. All right, they slid him over the slot full-time basis in 2017, but when he wasn't in the slot, he was at nickel linebacker. He was blitzing off the edge. So the acceleration is there, whether he's coming off the edge as a blitzer or he's tracking a ball carrier down from behind. It's sideline to sideline speed. And the one thing I love about Minka Fitzpatrick is that the motor always runs hot. You can't always say that with some of these other guys. Now, sometimes it's a gift and a curse because he'll overrun some plays. He'll miss a tackle because he overruns it. And a guy just sticks his foot in the ground and Minka Fitzpatrick goes flying by. But I just love that he's always going 110 miles an hour. I just love that he's playing with his hair on fire at just about every single turn. You look, this guy is running around trying to make something happen, whether he's chasing a play down from the backside. He's relentless in his pursuit, and he's got acceleration that if he gets beat on a play, he can track a guy down from behind and not give up 7. And we know that's important when you're talking about an Alabama defense that generally stiffens as they get closer to the end zone. Not necessarily in 2017, but you know Alabama has the ability to put together a goal line stand, force you to kick a field goal, that sort of thing. So tracking a guy down at the 7, tracking a guy down at the 2 is huge for that defense because they have the capability of forcing a goal line stand or forcing you to have to settle for 3. And Minka Fitzpatrick, I think that's when you really get to see his acceleration, is when he's either beaten on a play and he's got to track a guy down from behind after he's given up something, or he's beaten on a play, or he's in the trail technique and he's trying to track a potential pass catcher down to make a play on the football. You get to see him open up and run, and he's got that acceleration and all the things you look for from an athletic standpoint. Anticipation and awareness. He's very aware. There isn't many times on tape you'll watch this guy and see him out of place and see him not know what's going on. Now, he might not make the play, but he knows what's going on. He sees what's happening in front of him. He's able to react to it. Would I love him to be a little bit more responsive in zone coverage? Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But as far as him knowing what's going on, and he's a guy, I love his leadership on the field. You can't state that enough. This is the guy that's getting everybody lined up. He's the guy that you want with the green dot. He's getting everybody lined up in position, getting a call out to everybody so everybody's on the same page. You see him barking out orders and making sure that everybody knows their responsibility on the field for that particular snap. Love that about Minkah Fitzpatrick. Again, one of those leader on the field types. So again, anticipation, awareness. He anticipates things. You don't end up with 6 interceptions on the season. In 2016, he did that unless you're anticipating things. You're seeing what's going on. And that kind of leads us right into the next pro. LLC. You know how I feel about being an LLCer. Look, locate, and contest. You can't make plays on the football if you're not doing those 3 things. If you don't look, then you're not going to find the football. The football may find you, and you still may not be able to make a play if you don't look. If you don't locate the ball, hey, the ball gets batted in the air. You're right around the line of scrimmage. Ball gets batted in the air. You can't locate football. Guess what you can't do? You can't pick it off, okay? So looking is great, but you still got to locate. I can look back for the ball, but if the ball is right here and I'm looking over here, guess what? Still can't make a play on it. So you got to look and locate. Now I need you to contest. After you do the first 2, can you do that final thing that makes it all worth your while? Can you contest? And sometimes the contest can get you an interception, and Minka Fitzpatrick is one of those guys that he doesn't generally come down with picks when he contests, but he does get his hands on the football. And when he makes his picks, generally it's in a situation where he's got eyes on quarterback, eyes on ball, and he's able to make a play on the football that way, not necessarily in trail technique. Let me get my hands up and knock the football away. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, because he didn't look in some situations. Against LSU, there's a play down the field where he's beat and he pulls a hammy. Okay, he's beaten, but he has the makeup speed to catch up. Ball severely underthrown. He's able to knock it away without looking. Okay, sort of a face guard, but he doesn't face guard. He does a really good job of not having a lot of extracurricular activity down the field. It's rare to hear Minka Fitzpatrick and the word pass interference in the same sentence. He does a really good job of keeping his hands to himself. So even when he's in the hip pocket of a receiver and that receiver decides to put on the brakes, he does a good job of putting his hands up. Hey, I didn't touch him. You know, he may have initiated contact with me, but I didn't touch him. And he still gets his hands on the football. Did it in that LSU game. Now, did pull a hammy in doing so. Did it in the Mississippi State game late in that ball game on that final possession where they were looking to try to get into Hail Mary range. He's face guarding, doesn't look back for the football, still knocks it away, doesn't put his hands on the receiver, does a really good job of defending without impeding. So that's something that I think is going to translate well for him at the next level. Ball skills, 9 career interceptions, 4 of them to the crib. So you know this guy's doing work. And whether you make a mistake by overthrowing or underthrowing or throwing it behind, as they did in 2016 against Arkansas, where he was just in the right place at the right time, quarterback throws it behind an in-breaking route. He's the beneficiary, picks it off and says, you know what? I got the football, got a couple of blockers out in front. Why not make the most out of this situation and go get 7? And so, house call 4 times. So the guy, when he gets the football in his hands, not afraid to make something happen. So gotta love that about Minka Fitzpatrick as well. Man coverage is something I think he excels at, which again, when you got a guy playing the cornerback position, literally in 2015, in 2016, this guy was playing corner, like outside boundary corner. And they would mix him in with the slot in 2016. And then they said, you know what? Let's just make you a slot guy and we'll move you around and make you a chess piece because you're that good and we can do that with you and you understand all of the different responsibilities that come with being a slot, that come with being a nickel linebacker, that come with being a blitzer off the edge. You can do some of everything, so let's utilize you in that setting. And so his man coverage skills are outstanding. Now he will get beat on an in-breaking route. Now that's his one weakness in man coverage. Anything breaking to the inside, you can beat Minkah Fitzpatrick. I've got a number of examples of him just getting beaten like a drum to the inside. But anything outbreaking, anything up the field, he does a pretty good job of staying hip to hip with the receiver and giving himself a chance to make a play on the football. But you start running in-breaking routes, that's his kryptonite. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Blitzing capability, I think he's probably the most adept at blitzing because he did it the most of all of the safeties that we'll talk about in this draft class, especially when you're talking about the big name safeties in this draft, which we'll cover here on this show. But he blitzed the most. 4.5 career sacks for him. And I think he'll even get better at the next level because at Alabama, I don't think they did a good enough job of disguising when they were bringing Minkah Fitzpatrick. They pretty much telegraphed, hey, we bringing Minkah off the edge. Hey, we bringing Minkah off the slot. You know, they made it easy for defenses. I think you get with the right defensive coordinator that has some exotic schemes and blitzes, they'll disguise it better, and I think he'll be even more effective as a blitzer at the next level, but he's got that capability right now as it stands. Field coverage and range. Again, you didn't get to see him play center field. You didn't get to see the red line speed, but you know it's there. You know that he possesses it, and if asked to do so, if called upon to be a center fielder in a defense at the next level, I feel more than comfortable with him being able to do that. I think he has the range, and we've seen him run from sideline to sideline on a running play where he starts in the middle of the field, the play goes outside, and he has to string it out and get out there and do something about it. We've seen him do a number of different things. So his field coverage, his range, I think is outstanding, and it's more than good enough for a guy his size at the position that he'll be playing at the next level. Versatility, again, when you're talking versatility, he's a 10 out of 10. If we're talking safeties, again, this guy, I think, can play the safety position. He wasn't asked to do so at Alabama, especially in 2017. He was, like I said, glorified slot corner, if you ask me. He was a bona fide slot. But if you're talking slot coverage, you're talking nickel dime linebacker, you're talking blitzer. Hell, this guy even played just linebacker in general, you know, at times. He played all over the field, that rover position, if you will, as just kind of a defender that's kind of just, you know, hanging around, kind of eyeballing the quarterback, seeing if I can make a play. He did everything for Alabama on that defense, and including playing corner. Who's to say that a team that drafted him and say, hey, we need you to play out wide for us a little bit. Some injuries have hit us. Need you to go out wide and play a little bit of corner. He has the capability to do that as well. So his versatility off the charts for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And finally, toughness and durability. I think that's something that goes understated with the cornerback position or safety position, especially safeties, because we ask so much of the safeties these days. And what we don't take into consideration is how durable are you? Can you stay healthy? Because these guys got to hit. These guys got to run. These guys got to cover. And if you've got a tightly wound athlete that's coming pulling hamstrings, and if you got a guy that can't stay healthy because he's getting stingers, because he's using his shoulders all the time, you may have a problem on your hands at the next level. He played in 42 of 44 possible games while at Alabama. So he missed 2 games. And so, and that was because of that hamstring that I told you about that he pulled against LSU. And not only did he show toughness by coming back and playing in that game, he played in the next game. And if you ask me, he missed 2 games in his career. And the only reason he missed those 2 games was because of the opponent, all right? He got hurt against LSU. He played the next week versus Mississippi State because it was a ranked team on the road. The following week, it was Mercer. Do you think Alabama needs Minka Fitzpatrick to beat Mercer? I don't think so, and I don't think they thought they needed him. So they said, hey, rest up, because we got to go on the road next week, and we got to take on a tough team in the SEC. We'll need you back for that one. So take a break. We don't need you for Mercer. Same thing when he missed his first collegiate game against Charleston Southern. You think they needed him for Charleston Southern? No, they didn't need him in that game. So they sat him down because we need you for that next SEC game. And so you can sit down and miss Charleston Southern or Mercer. So honestly speaking, if those were big time SEC opponents, I think he would have played in those games as well. So you're talking about a guy that's extremely tough and very durable throughout his collegiate career. So all of these things make him the complete package and really probably the safest pick at the safety position in the upcoming draft. But we go from those pros to a couple of cons that I am a little concerned about, but not really much. But let's talk about it anyway. So the first con is his tackling and his willingness to tackle. Now, the willingness part, I don't have any issues with that. I think he's more than willing to put his body on the line. Tackling is another question here. Now, can he tackle? Sure, he can tackle. But here's my problem. He doesn't wrap up. And I think it's an Alabama thing in the secondary. A lot of these guys. Now, take Anthony Averett out of the discussion because I like him. He's really growing on me, okay? But that's another discussion for another day. Now, this is a guy, and you'll see the same thing with Ronnie Harrison. They don't wrap up. A lot of shoulders, a lot of throwing my body at guys, not because they can't, but because that's just what they do. And you miss a lot of tackles that way when you throw your body at guys and they're able to just bounce off of you. He missed quite a few tackles that Minka Fitzpatrick, whether it was a guy bouncing off of one of his shoulder attempts or him overrunning a play. I told you he plays with a lot of energy, runs around. He's very, very energetic. And I love that. I love that energy that he brings to the field, but it has to be controlled to a degree. And sometimes he'll overrun a play and a guy will just simply cut it back and he'll kind of run by him. Ole! And he'll miss. So, yeah, he can tackle, but I'd like to see him be better. And there's something to be said about them deciding, probably not best if Minka's the last line of defense. Now, was that the decision-making process and thought process that they went into when making the decision to pull him up closer to the line of scrimmage? I doubt it. But maybe that was in the back of their mind. Minka's not necessarily the best guy to have back there as the last line of defense. So we'll bring him up closer to the line of scrimmage. I'm not saying, I'm just saying he can tackle better is basically what I'm trying to say. Zone coverage. I don't think he does a good enough job of matching, okay? Pattern matching when guys run into his zone. I'll give you an example. I'm watching him in the championship game versus Georgia, and there's a receiver running an over route. It's essentially a big, deep crossing route, all right? And the guy is running into his zone, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, he sees him running into the zone, but really doesn't pay much attention to where the guy's going or what he's doing. And all he simply had to do was run with that receiver for about a good 3 or 4 steps. And Jacob Fromm would have had to turn down that option because it wouldn't have been available. Just close the window a little bit. Instead, he just stands there, kind of watches the receiver go by, and the receiver kind of runs into an open window in the zone coverage, and Fromm just casually steps up in the pocket and zings it to him. And so it's a pickup of 17, 18 yards that could have been avoided if he just pattern matches. I don't think he does a good enough job of seeing guys in his zone and matching them while in his zone. I think he just kind of says, I'm going to do my job. This is my zone. This is my area. I'll kind of patrol it and hang out. And hopefully the quarterback just won't throw the football where I am. Or maybe throw it where I am and let me get a pick. But I think he could do a better job of being aware of where guys are in his zone and match a little bit better. I think he can do a better job of that. But I'm nitpicking. This guy is really clean. He gives you a lot of what you're looking for in today's NFL. And like I said, I look at him as a bona fide slot corner for all intents and purposes, with the capability to play nickel and dime linebacker. This guy can do everything, but you didn't really get to see him play single high safety. You didn't really get to see him cut the field in half. And we all assume that he can, okay? We all assume that this is what this man can do, but he just didn't do it very often. But in any event, Minkah Fitzpatrick is an outstanding football player. I think he's going to go off the board in the first 10 picks. If he doesn't, if we go all crazy with the quarterback position and we get a couple surprises, he may slip out of the top 10. He's not going to slip out of the top 15. I can assure you of that. So we'll see what happens with him. But in any event, that's Minkah Fitzpatrick and his draft prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, you know your man Louie T's got you covered. And remember, we're changing the game over here, period. Come back and join me, because I've got plenty more players to break down at the safety position. And remember, if you want to see Minkah Fitzpatrick's overall grade that I gave him and score, and all of the other safeties and all the other players in the draft that I've been able to look at and break down, go to the website louietnetwork.net to see what he scored and some of the other guys around him scored as well. That's Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm your man Louie T. I'll see you next time. Come back and join me and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.